Music. Wow, Eddie Mazar.
Oh, how nice. I know that.
Good morning.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm fine. Here I am.
I thought of you last night at, I don't know, 10:30. And I said to myself, I got to call Eddie Mazar. I haven't talked to him in too long. And here you are. Wow.
Let's see what he looks like.
Wow. He looks great as ever.
I'll decide that.
Well, here we are.
There he is.
I'm gonna make myself incognito as you found me before.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll get started in a moment. How's the audio coming through on your end, Eddie? You hear me okay?
Everything, it's fine.
I'm trying a new mic, so I just wanted to get some feedback.
Keep it.
Okay, I'm going to send a message to our people. Encourage them to join us.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Just that while they scrabble.
Who are our people?
There's a list.
Cindy, you're getting existential. I mean,
Okay.
Jane, you're getting existential on
Off
me.
the top of my head.
Only because you're saying it, interpreting it that way.
That's true. That's true. Where am I here? No, I just send it to the Machane Chodesh WhatsApp chat. In person?
Yeah, in person. It'd be so cool to have class.
I don't know,
I
man.
used to have a class with David. What was his name? That
David Knee, yeah, he's
Yeah. Oh, what a doll he is.
David and
Gula Sabbath sometimes.
Betty Seisner would come.
Yeah.
And there were some other people who used to come.
It's hard to pull the names off
Ever
out of my
since
head.
coronavirus, they're so scared.
yeah.
Randy, when you're not here, it's a one-person classroom. You have to go. I'm
Yeah.
depending on you.
Janie,
Otherwise,
you're
you
holding it
picks on
together.
me. I'm the one who has to answer all the questions.
Okay. Pin. And mute.
So much nicer than saying shut up. Mute.
One of the phenomenal aspects of
Computers.
Zoom is that we have the ability to choose what we look at, choose what we listen to, and choose what we say.
As well as here. No, you said that already. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's I think it's a reminder that we can do that in life always.
Oh, you are on a roll today, boss.
You know, we can always choose to mute.
There's nothing like being with people.
That's
rather
true.
than having a
I agree with
mirror
you.
between you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
And I think actually a fascinating thing about Zoom that I realized recently is that we never have true eye contact over the Zoom. So I don't know if have you ever done a Zoom video conference?
I think I've been in some.
So
But not in my
Right.
apartment, not in my-
right. So the thing with the way Zoom works is that you have a camera looking at your face and you look back at the screen and you might be looking into the person's eyes who's speaking to you. But usually the problem with Zoom is that usually the person who's on the other end is looking at the screen also. They're not looking at the camera. So it's hard to have it's hard even to have the illusion of eye contact because so often the person is looking at the screen. And so their eyes are off because the camera is above the screen, right?
That's a lack of focus, you mean.
Yeah, people will be looking down
Okay,
somewhat.
makes sense.
It
I don't
looks
know,
like
I've
they're
never
looking
done
down.
this before, but I'm just discerning from what you're saying.
Yeah. So the eye
You can
contact
phone
is
on
not
computer to do
precise.
that, and I
Yeah,
like both.
the eye contact is not precise. But
Right.
even if you would have the person speaking looking into the camera and the person listening looking at the screen, you have a kind of the simulation of eye contact, but not the actual resonance that results from real eye contact in real time.
It's not genuine.
What happens when we have eye contact in real time is that our being begins to vibrate at a similar frequency. It affects the frequency of our vibrations,
Huh.
and that's why being, so that can be on a one-to-one level, and it can also be in a crowd, which is why being in a crowd comes with a certain experience. There's a profound experience that comes from being in a group, being in a crowd. Who you sit with affects the way you feel. All of these things have an impact on our vibe.
Absolutely.
So, that's why there really is no true substance. There is no substitute for true, real time, in real life presence.
May I make a comment?
Hmm.
Back in the day, when I used to go out, I'd be in a crowd and we would start to sing Hatikva, and it is such an emotional, impactful, amazing experience. Just like myself, half the people in the audience have tears running down their face.
Right.
We're all bonding.
Right.
All these fellow Jews together. We're sharing the same love for arts and we're singing the same tune. And I like the words to describe it,
Right.
but you both know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
The experience of that word you used, bonding, or what I call instead attuning to each other, beginning to vibrate on the same frequency. And actually, I read a paper yesterday, fascinating article, which talks about this. They're doing scientific research along these lines, and which early the hypothesis, of course, which is yet to be fully proven, but it's an interesting hypothesis, is that all creatures, all matter on Earth vibrates at some level, and that this might explain some of the ways that matter interacts with other matter, even though it appears to be to not have consciousness.
Inert.
So, but the idea of entering into a space in which we impact each other's vibe is very powerful. So,
It might have consciousness, but you might not be aware of it.
right,
Oh.
that's true. That's true. It might. It's hard to.
It doesn't show it's not.
Right. It's hard to. I don't know of an experiment. I can't think of an experiment which would demonstrate effectively the presence of consciousness. And what I mean by consciousness is the awareness of one's consciousness. So that a person may have lights on. For example, a plant moves towards the light. Does that mean the plant is conscious of the light? In a sense, it is. Of course, it's conscious of the light. It's reacting to it. That means it's conscious of it.
I understand.
And
It's
yet,
intelligence.
I don't know. I don't know I'm not sure what the precise word is. So that's why I'm saying it in a long-winded way.
Mhm.
Yet, does the plant know that it is? Does the plant have the experience of its consciousness, or is it simply the existence of consciousness without the awareness of consciousness? So,
And can a plant feel pain when you cut it?
right. So what is pain, right? So the plant definitely reacts. The plant, for example, creates scar tissue over a place where it was wounded. So the plant was wounded, and the plant reacts to pain-inducing stimuli. But does the plant have the experience of that? Does the plant have the experience of having reacted to the stimuli?
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So, I think we have to get maybe like when we ask the question, does the plant feel pain? That's a broad question, which may have granular. We can get down to it on a granular level and find out that there are different ways of answering that question. Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about something different today. So let's this week's Parsha is Parshas Mishpatim. Parshas Mishpatim are largely, so the overwhelming subject matter of this week's reading is the civil laws of Judaism.
So Mishpat means more than sentence here.
Yes. Mishpat in modern Hebrew means a sentence or a statement. But in our case, the word mishpat has the root shofet, judge. What is the job of a judge? The job of a judge is to identify the reality. The judge doesn't decide what you should do. That is a counselor. It's a guide. The judge decides who is guilty and who is innocent. They don't say who should be punished. They declare the reality. And so in a sense, the word mishpat as a sentence or a declaration and the word shofet as a judge are not unrelated.
Makes sense to me. Thank you.
I want to talk about a mitzvah which we may be aware of, but not aware to the extent of it. And that is Mishpatim, Parshas Mishpatim, Exodus chapter, it's a page 314 in the Sasino Chumash. It is Exodus chapter 22, verse 24. Im kesef talveh es ami. When you lend money to a fellow Jew, to my people, es he'ani imach, for example, the poor person who is with you, lo siya lo chenoshe, lo siya lo kenoshe, you shall not be to him as a creditor. Lo sisimun olav neshech, you should not put interest upon him. Okay. So this is a prohibition from the Torah that it is forbidden to engage in usury. That is, it is forbidden to take interest on a loan. We are required to do gemilut chasodim. In our in the colloquial sense, that means we are required to lend for free loan. And the nature of this is, so how then, this is a problem. this mitzvah. It's one of the most difficult mitzvahs to, it's one of the very difficult mitzvahs because the credit is at the heart of industry, of commerce, rather. Credit is the engine of commerce. And one of the ways in which we motivate people to extend credit, essentially to risk losing their money, is with the hope of getting some gain, some interest in the loan. So a society that doesn't lend money to each other is very problematic. So this device called interest is an important device, an important mechanism by which we can motivate the stimulus of the economy. Okay, so we'll just maybe take a step for a moment to the practical. Any party involved in the loan or the transaction are forbidden from engaging in the lending of money on interest. So the borrower, if somebody says, you say, I'm not taking interest, but the guy is requiring me to pay him interest, it's forbidden. That's also an avera. It's forbidden to pay interest to a fellow Jew. Also, the witnesses who witness the loan, the scribe who draws up a person who draws up the loan document, and the others who facilitate the loan are also violating the prohibition of interest. Now, technically, there are also kind of gray areas of ribbis, of loaning on interest, and that is giving someone a gift because they lent you money. Even if that is the gift is before the loan or after the loan. If giving somebody a gift because they have indicated that they would lend you money. And similarly, giving someone a gift after they have lent you money and after you repay them back. Certainly giving the gift together with the repayment of the loan is problematic.
He speaks of bribery, right?
Not bribery, interest. Yeah,
Wrong.
yeah. Now, by the way, we have to clarify that historically, Jews have unfortunately had to make a living by lending, by banking, right? That was because Jews in Europe were forbidden from owning land, and were also prevented from joining the guilds, the craftsmen's guilds, and therefore were left only with very limited opportunities for making a living. And everyone knows that the banker is everyone's best friend when you're lending the money, but everyone's enemy when he's expecting repayment. So it's potentially a very unpopular livelihood, and the Gentiles were very happy to have Jews engage in this high risk on multiple levels parnasa livelihood. So so that is true, that Jews have historically made their money on banking. However, that is permitted. It is permitted to lend money to a Gentile on interest. And this, while it may seem to be a double standard, Jewish people are forbidden from lending fellow Jews interest, but they are permitted to lend Gentiles money on interest. It is not a double standard. On the contrary, it is engaging in a single standard with the person with whom you are engaging. So since Gentiles lend each other money on interest, so for me to not lend money on interest in the Gentile world would be preventing me from engaging in an important, it would create a double standard between me and the world around me and prevent me from participating in the community as an equal. So while we do have such standards that differentiate us, that divide us from our neighbors on a social level, such as, right, the prohibitions against eating kosher, against eating non-kosher, drinking wine that is been handled by a non-Jew or been handled by a non-Jew, and et cetera, et cetera. We're forbidden from marrying a non-Jew, right? All those divisions are on the personal and social level. Commerce, however, is the appropriate way in which we engage with the world around us. It is, as a matter of fact, there's a Kabbalistic teaching which states that the laws, the mishpatim, these civil laws of the Torah, represent the highest light of the Torah. They are, it seems you wouldn't think so because they're the least mystical, right? However, they are universal. So the laws of the mishpatim apply equally to men and to women. And in a sense, they apply equally to Jew and Gentile, in a sense. It represents the universal light of God. And when we think of the mishpatim, or the civil engagement, this represents the place in which we are all the same. And so therefore, commerce is the appropriate way for a Jew and a Gentile to engage when we are both in the presence of the universal light of God. Whereas on the social level, on the personal level, there it's more idiosyncratic. There, authenticity is demanded. In the presence of the universal light of God, there is no inauthenticity, because everything is in the presence of the universal light of God. Who is not in the light of God? Whereas when we're talking about something like a meditation, when we're talking about the creation of a personal identity that is associated with, related with the holiness of God, that has to be authentic. That has to be true to who I am, true to the uniqueness of me. And then we begin to introduce these separations, these divisions between men and women, between Jew, Havdalah, and Gentile, between different ages and stages of life, different tribes, Kohanim, Levim, Israelim, etc. So that's kind of a general thoughts on this issue. Now let's go specifically to the laws of REBBE. So how do we deal with how do we deal with the need to have credit in the real world when lending with credit, lending with interest is forbidden. So to this we have something called a heter iska. Heter iska is means permission through investment. It changes the loan, which is prohibited to be on interest, into an investment, in which the investor is permitted to make a profit on the investment that they made. So the lender is now giving money to the borrower as an investment, hoping that they will benefit from having used that money, make some profit from it, and share a portion of the profits with the investor rather than the lender.
Heter still retains its original definition of exemption.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
What is the way in which, so that how exactly does it work? It's complicated. Essentially, there is this method of transforming the loan into a investment. Now, the Rebbe points out something fascinating about the difference between a loan and an investment. A loan, in the case of a loan, I give you the money. Let's say I'm the lender, right? When I give you the money, that money becomes yours. There is a contract between us that you will later give me money. You will give me money of your own. When I lend you $5 and I say, pay me back $5, I am not asking you to give me back the same $5 bill. I have you have taken complete possession, complete ownership of that $5. It is only that there is a contract that you should later pay me $5. I am giving you this on condition that you will later give me something else. So when that is the case, interest means receiving a benefit for something which is not mine. Right? When I get interest, I am receiving a benefit for something which doesn't belong to me. Whereas when I make an investment, the investment is I still retain a stake in that money. I retain an interest in that capital. And so my capital is working for me in your possession. And so that's basically the difference between a loan and an investment. So I want to talk about a spiritual idea, which is mirrored in this concept. Fascinating spiritual idea. We say each morning in the prayers, Magid Divarav Li'Yaakov, Chukav Umishpatav Li'Yisrael. God tells his word to Jacob, his statutes and his civil laws to Israel. The Midrash comments on this and says, when the Torah refers to, when the Psalm in that case refers to God's laws, something which is his, something which is his becoming ours. The Midrash says, this is because God is giving us laws which are his. That is, God himself does those mitzvahs. That's the idea, right? There are two ways of looking at that phrase. God himself does the mitzvahs, which indicates a relationship between people who do mitzvahs and God who does mitzvahs. That is, God did it, and now he indicates that we could do it. An alternative is that when we do it, God does it. How do we understand this? So perhaps we can think of it this way. Each mitzvah, each sacred act is something which we didn't dream up. It's something which we received. And its value in that sense is greater than us. It's outside of us.
Where is our free will?
What about free will?
How does that relate to what you're saying?
I'm talking about the notion that you might do something, the thing you might do rather than the choice to do it. Right. So where did we get the idea that we might observe Shabbos? Where did we get the idea that we might observe Shabbos? Right? So where do we get the idea that we might observe Shabbos? Where does this, it starts out as an abstract notion, which precedes us, which comes from, it comes to us through history. It comes to us from the outside of us. And in that sense, we would say it belonged to God before it belonged to us. Right? And then he gave it to us and made it possible for us to do it. Now, at the same time, we, us human beings, are in and of God. We aren't, we use human words to say we are created by God. The flaw in that term, created by God, seems to indicate that God made us as something outside of him. Right? In the way that a craftsman makes a vessel, that the craftsman is a person, and he has a generative force that extends outside of himself. In the case of God, that's not accurate, because God is infinite. And thus there can be no place outside of him. So how does creation happen? Creation happens, so to speak, within him. Everything is within him. We are all in his presence. So we are, in a sense, a manifestation of a different kind of godly quality. A manifestation of a different kind of godly quality. Jen, you want me to wait for you? I'll wait for you.
Thank you.
Sure. So when we
Thank you.
when we having been created, not created but manifested within the infinity of God, that means that we are, in a sense, still we are still within God. And so when we do a mitzvah, God is doing a mitzvah. In a way, you might say, because the way God has created us, manifested us, is that we have the experience of independence, free will. It's almost as though God is waiting for us to do the mitzvah so that he can do it. Right? If when we are doing the mitzvah, then God is doing a mitzvah, and we have chosen to do the mitzvah, then God is waiting for us to do the mitzvah so that he can do it. Right? That's how I understand that. Now, some people might complain about all these mitzvahs, all these commandments, all these expectations, all these obligations. But the truth is, you shouldn't complain, because having these obligations or expectations are fundamental to creating a sense of meaning in our lives. A life, while we crave a life of ease and a life without expectations, that degree of leisure is toxic. The worst thing in life is to feel useless. And so no one wants to feel used, but feeling useless is even worse. And so, in a sense, the greatest sense of worth, the sense of, right, this is our experience of having these expectations, having these commandments, gives us such a sense of worth, of meaning, direction, value in our life, the value of ourselves. But in a sense, it also kind of closes the loop between the outside turning to inside and then inside turning to outside, where let's say the notion of Shabbos came to us from the outside, from God, from the universal light of God. And then it becomes something that we choose to do. And that this individual, is the only one who can choose to do it. No one else can do it for me. And in a sense, God is waiting for me to choose to do it so that this part of him can also be observing Shabbos. And in so doing, inside turns to outside. The part of the universe is now a more Shabbostic place because I have chosen to do it. back to interest. The idea of interest versus investment is a fascinating way to think about this this dynamic that I described. We like to think of our soul or our life, our existence, as on loan from God, as though God created us as something outside of him that he relinquished connection with, and that he expects us to return it to him. He expects things in return for our use of the soul and the body. This is not the correct way to think about it. The correct way to think about it is as an investment. That is, God invests himself into this, what's it called? Into this venture called Yossi Mendelssohn. You know, each one of us. God invests himself into this venture and retains. I never leave the domain of God, even as I'm created.
Beautiful.
And therefore, when I do mitzvahs, that is God's investment of himself into this venture, paying dividends, both for me and for him.
Beautiful.
Which is why I could say that the dividends that I receive is the experience of the worth and the meaning and the value of what I accomplish. And God too I don't know about God, so I'll leave it at that.
I like that.
So I want to invite us all to encounter the presence of Hashem, the manifestation of Hashem that is me. And to experience the joy of being the investment that pays dividends to the investor. God is waiting for us to do the mitzvah so that this part of him can do the mitzvah.